everybody, and welcome to show number 15 of the Coffee Diaries.
Grand Rising.
Grand Rising Ade.
So tell us a little bit of, we had this discussion about toxic masculinity, and you came up with the phrase toxic immaturity. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so what I was thinking is that when we say toxic masculinity, we're using masculinity as we are defining what it is. But if we take a step back and say a lot of the behavior that we see being shown, a lot of it, I think, is very kind of immature behavior. Behavior that you'll see that we haven't really grown out of, like concerning the idea of me. I want this. This must happen. I own this. I was here first. And we take these kind of behaviors and we use them in our adult life, and they become exaggerated in our behavior.
Yeah.
And if you're a guy, of course, we so in regards to what we are seen as shown as being masculine behavior, which is what we got taught to. You got to be the strongest, the fittest, the biggest muscles, all the power. This is mine. I own this. And these behaviors become exaggerated, and I think in quite a childlike, immature way. And I think to really look at this, we got to really understand that I think this sense of me, I want this, I own that, I was here first, contributes to much of the issues that we see going on right now, whether it be relationships with people or even environment. That's my land. I can do it. I can do with it what I want.
Yeah.
I bought it. I can do with it what I want. I was even here first. I can do with it what I want. Rather than looking at it as a holistic whole point of view, we are here together. But I think this sense of me, this identity, has got so out of control. And when it comes to masculinity, or what we taught, I think we got to look at it, what we were taught masculinity is.
Yeah.
By what we saw on TV, the behavior of men around us, behavior of people around us. We were taught a certain way. So what about, Ade, if we go beyond the assumptions and look, what is it really?
Yeah.
And to question what we think it is. Because when we think of the word masculinity, the first thing comes to mind is the things I've been taught about it. But what if that is not it? I just assume these things because of what I've been told. What if masculinity is caring?
Yeah.
And caring is the most extraordinary, maybe sometimes even the most difficult things you can do. That means being outside of yourself and putting maybe someone else first.
Yeah.
That implies strength. That implies holding and unity. And maybe that is the masculinity.
Yeah. And the I like that you called it strength, because I think in some ways, growing up, many men or before we've reached manhood, we kind of look at that as a weakness, and so we defend against that, against showing any weakness, any vulnerability, to be there with another person, to attempt to understand, to listen. Especially this comes out in a lot of relationships, I think, where maybe your significant other may say, hey, there's these things that you did that I don't like. And, in this this way that, at least that I was brought up, or that I took on this kind of way of being where I just kind of shut down and like be very stoic and just not, no, that's, and not really consider the other person, like be vulnerable, take on, really take in what they're saying. Rather, the action from me was to prove that I'm right, to protect, this identity of the me, like that you talked about, that sense of self, that sort of image of what it is to be a man, what it is to be masculine. I grew up, with role models and that, uh, we're to be quite honest, womanizers. Um, a woman is supposed to do this, man is supposed to go to work, make the money, do all these things. And then it was all over when I was growing up in the movies I watched, like even like in the movies, like in the 40s, where they would have the hysterical woman. Like the woman would start panicking, and then the man would go, "Snap out of it," and smack her, and then she'd come out of it. Like, what kind of message does that send? Kids growing up watching that stuff. That the hysterical woman, which is saying that emotions are bad. Emotions are something to be contained. So then, while at the same time, you're having emotions because we're human and emotions are a part of life. So, such a built in sort of denial system linked into our survival mechanism as well, as many things get linked into that, because as it becomes part of our identity, we have to, ego will do anything it can to maintain itself, in that identity. So yeah, it's a difficult thing to begin to open up and to let some of that, just to see it first, as it comes up.
Mm. It's interesting as well that the one thing that has been allowed, the emotion, is anger, isn't it? That
Yeah.
males can use, the one that is they can use. And it's really interesting because these things are so pervasive, what we think masculinity is. It's so pervasive that it's never even questioned. And you just saying about those movies that we've watched, and and we talked about the other day. We talked about the other day in these action films. This guy has just brought down a whole building on people, killed 50 people, and walks off into the sunset with, with a cigarette in his hand, and he's cool. Is that in any other walk of life, that would be quite psychopathic, wouldn't it? Somebody who
Yeah.
didn't feel anything at all could just walk off, stroll off into the night. It's all okay. Everything's wonderful. And we don't really confront really what's going on. And we take these issues as being the truth. And it's interesting what you say. I remember playing that game called Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
As a child, and you had the things, and you could play this game, and you would kill somebody, and the blood would all coming out, and the guy's on the floor with no head on. And I think what that does, that kind of teaches us to see another person as an other.
Yeah. Yeah.
These movies we do, so we don't have any kind of real emotional connection. They're an other. They're different.
Mm.
So it's that kind of quashing of any kind of feeling for another person or another thing. And the training that we get to go through this as guys is immense, isn't it? Because I like what your friend said the other day. Go and watch the sports. Go and do this. Go and run around. Go and have a drink.
Yeah.
Just don't talk about it. And I remember one occasion we were meeting a friend that we hadn't seen for a while. And of course, as life goes, we're all going through stuff. And we know this particular guy has been going through a few issues.
Mm.
So we see each other and we go, "Oh, how you doing?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm cool." And he goes, "How you doing?" "Yeah, we're cool." And
Yeah.
"How you doing?" We're cool. Yeah. I don't think any of us were cool.
Yes. Yeah.
There was things that we couldn't say.
Yeah.
And I think we were trained not to say them because of we can't let another person know what's going on.
Mm.
Yes. We can't really. Yeah, and if you're able, Ade, let me ask you this, but if you're able to really express, wouldn't that be strength in its essence? That if you were really able to this is how I am.
Mm.
Isn't that true strength?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you say that because last night I was listening to some of those 100 tracks that you've sent me. I'm up to I think I'm up to number 9, but they are amazing. I was listening to one of them. I think it was Creole. It was a Creole musician, who was quite it was quite good. But yeah, so I was listening. I was home alone, and I was doing. There was nobody here, and I felt like this freedom to like dance, and I was doing all like to the music. The music was very soothing, and I found myself doing these sort of like ballet almost sort of movements, and there was a part of me that was like, no, you're not supposed to do like this sort of thing, but I felt like and you talk about strength, earlier, uh, you know in this expression, getting in touch with that part, with that thing that I was running away from, and then just feeling it and expressing it. And there was such a power, such a strength in the gracefulness of it, and the movements were difficult too. There was another kind of strength in, like I've been doing a lot of mixed martial arts now and stuff like that. Like, but with this, it was like being balanced and, using different small muscles and everything like that. And just the expression of it. So what came up for me was this idea of masculine and feminine, so-called masculine and so-called feminine energy. What is the difference, and are we missing something by putting labels on these things? Does it prevent us from experiencing this part of ourselves, something that's within ourselves, that we kind of put in a box and call it something, put a label on it and say, because with labels there comes some sort of history, some like feeling of, no, I haven't earned this, or no, this is not, I haven't gone through the steps to activate whatever, or this, like you had talked about before, the term masculine, when we connect it with toxic masculinity, we think that masculine is toxic. So like what I thought is, what if this graceful movement is part of masculinity? Like what if that's what that is as well? So
What I thought of when you said feminine and masculine, I thought of two oceans. So we have, let's say, North Ocean and South Ocean, and they come in together. And then when they get to this point where they meet, and there's a point though where we don't know where North and South is. Where does North end and where does South end?
mm,
And maybe that's what masculine and femininity is. It's a rolling, it's a fluid thing. I guess on the extremes, on the outer edges, but as we get into it, it's a flowing movement of things. And
yeah.
there may be a feminine energy and a masculine energy, but it's the coming together of all of them. Anything in the extreme may be the toxicity, but in reality, and even though we're calling it a North Ocean and a South Ocean, it's actually one ocean.
Mm,
And the
yeah.
yin and yang symbols are in the whole. And maybe that's telling us it's all of it is a flow, all of it is going through each other, and it's about understanding the connectivity of both so they're in
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And I think one way to, I think dance is a really good way to experience that and to feel it, um, kind of express it in a way, you know.
I think any way where you're being, you know what, art, expressing who you are, expressing your creativity, expressing your art. All of this, I think, is beneficial for who you are.
Yeah.
You're putting, in a way, yourself out there, your creativity, what you're doing. You're putting it out there and you're saying, this is me.
Mm.
This is my energy. This is how I feel. This is what's going on. And I'm okay. There are some people who won't like it, and there's some people who will. And that is me. So I think in any kind of art form, when you put yourself out there, there is firstly this great creativity, but I think there's this kind of great understanding of who you are. There's a great learning about it, and then you can understand about yourselves.
Yeah.
And there's a term that you use a lot, Ade. You know, it's called holding space.
Mm.
How would you use that in regards to what we're discussing today, in regards to masculinity? Because you and I had a conversation once, I mean, a while ago, and we talked about holding space.
Yeah. Hmm. How would I use it in terms of masculinity?
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, what is what is masculinity? You know, that's, I don't know what it is.
Mm.
Because I've been sort of conditioned to think of it, certain images come to mind. I think you spoke about, the muscles, the person in war who is dying, and he's and it's, he has the in the film he has like the dirt on his face, and his friend is, is distraught, and he says, "Oh, it's time to go. Do you have another cigarette?" And the guy, he can't even put in his mouth. The friend puts the cigarette in the mouth, and he lights it, and he's like, "Just leave me here. Leave me here alone. Go save yourself. I'm gonna have this last cigarette." It makes it very romantic, and so that's when I think of masculinity. That's what I think. It's just, don't let anyone see any weakness. And I grew up that way. I grew up in Crown Heights in Brooklyn, and it was a very tough neighborhood. And my role models were the other kids that were maybe a little bit older than me, and we were all about being stoic, just not showing any. You have to be hard. You have to no, no feelings, other than anger, um, or laughing. And when we laughed, we really laughed. We all laughed hysterically at times, where we would cry laughing. It was like that moment of everything coming out, all of that stuff that was built up, but the laughter felt more safe. The laughter felt like, okay, we can all laugh together. We can't cry, you know.
Imagine it. It's what happened is that it's all getting together. That wasn't happening in my town.
Yeah, so that's how I grew up, and also in my my role models, certain family members, we like to drink, and eat food. So that was being masculine, eating a lot of meats, steaks, all that stuff, drinking, and not those mixed drinks with the pina coladas or any of that stuff. We drink the strong rum, and, the West Indian strong rum, or the beers or stuff like that. And yeah, you get up, you drink, you get up, and you go to work. And meanwhile, there was this thing that would come up, this unwanted, and I'll get into the holding space part, this unwanted visitor, that would come up, and it was like, what is that? What is that? And I would feel terrified, because what is that thing that's coming up in the stomach and in the diaphragm? And it was strange, and it was scary, and it was unknown, and I had to find some way to get away from it, because that was the enemy. So essentially, I made myself the enemy, because that's part of myself, right? So this thing had become the enemy. I had to drown it with alcohol, and which I did many years. I used to drink a lot, like in my teens and early 20s, or other things, obsess about sex, or finding a girlfriend or many girlfriends or whatever. Food, trying to drown it with food, and all these different ways. Anger, rage, rage. I would rage because it would all come to the boiling point, and then I would snap and blow up and become violent and get into fights and all this stuff when I was drinking. So, that gradually I've learned how to hold space for that, and just to observe it, invite it in, recognize its innocence, even hold it with reverence. As I talk, we have had discussions of being out in nature and not labeling the tree right away, but observing the tree with reverence, and honoring the mystery of the tree, and letting it reveal itself to me. So that's what the holding space was, is giving this space for letting this part to come up and reveal itself, and in its different ways. And yeah, and then by doing that, you kind of, for the first time, begin to exhale, and to begin to let down these defenses and these walls that have been built around my heart, and been causing physical pain as well throughout my life. I've had a lot of stomach issues and different physical ailments because of that masculine, um, that wrong perception of what masculinity is.
Do you know what? I think there's probably thousands, hundreds of people who've done things. I'm talking specifically about young men here, who've done things they don't want to do,
Yeah.
but they feel they have to do it to look tough or hard.
Mm.
Who've ended up in all kinds of trouble.
Yeah.
They didn't want to do the thing they were asked to do by their peer group, but they felt they had to do it.
Mm.
Look at the devastation that causes. And also, maybe as well, I've read this report that I think men go to the doctors less than women.
Yeah. I've heard that.
And what are we doing to ourselves then?
Mm.
What's going on inside? Because we may not show it outwardly, but it is going on. Whether it be stomach issues, bowel issues, kidney issues, whatever it is going on, it's affecting us, holding this in, this rigidity.
Yeah.
And it has to come out in some form. And I remember I was listening to that talk with Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin. And sometimes it comes out on the people we don't really want it to come out with, our peer group family. If we've been suppressing stuff in,
Yeah.
where does it come out? And I think it's a lot behind how our behavior as a society, as a community, as a world, either to suppress, to hold it in,
Mm-hmm.
or to power over.
Yeah.
Then to exploit, then to use. And that can be using of people, things, even concepts and ideas to control others. And we see its manifestation in today's world.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe this opportunity in this discussion, is there a new way that we can define it? Is there a new way that we can look at it?
Mm.
And I think this new way will transform not only individual behavior, but not only family and group behavior, but worldwide behavior.
Yeah.
How we speak, how we interact with another. Because I think our whole paradigm is because as well, when you watch the presidential elections, I'm the greatest, I'm the best, we're the best in the world.
Yeah.
Who would say that? So imagine I went down the street, oh, I'm the greatest, I'm this, I'm the best. Obviously, I've got some issues going on,
Yeah.
So, and I remember in some elections, it's about, I've got a war record. I went to war. Yeah, vote for me. I've got a war record. I would have served. What about the guy who hasn't got a war record, but, volunteers in his local charity? I don't know. Maybe, but why aren't they seen as the same?
Yeah.
So I think it will transform everything from top to bottom. And to make it okay again as well, which is great having these long form conversations, to have these long form conversations with partners and friends. And to look at this sense of me. I want this. I want that. That is mine. I want to look good. I want to, you know what? Another one I want to save face. I don't want anyone to really see behind this. You know what? Oh no, I can't let them see. Or vulnerable.
Mm.
If we turn it, I think it was Brené Brown that said there's a great power in vulnerability.
Yeah.
Now, we grew up with that word vulnerable, I think, meaning one thing. You're at risk.
Yeah.
But maybe then, Ade, at risk from what? What about if it's going over the edge into a new way of seeing things? Like we go into the black hole of I don't know. That is a risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe risk then, it doesn't come, it's not a scary thing. It seems that we're looking into how we are defining these words. And maybe we've got to step back and stop making assumptions and look again.
Yeah. Even like I think it's the Native Americans that they are. I think I read this in the museum in New York, that there are different types of warriors. So there were warriors, but some of the warriors went to the battlefield, and some of the warriors did this sort of stood for peace, stood for trying to cooperate, try to solve issues by talking, by certain principles like tolerance and understanding and things like of that nature. And yeah, the vulnerability piece can be very scary, because you feel like you're gonna if you become vulnerable, then the other person will have the upper hand, and once they do, how will you regain any sort of footing? You're gonna lose yourself. And as you said, kind of you know, um, going off of that ledge and into that place of unknown, um, doesn't mean that we are going to just let someone, doesn't mean you're going to let someone just walk all over you and like have their way with you. There is this, and to enable to be able to use, I think, discernment and one's inner wisdom. And I think you have said this before. You can enter things consciously, so you enter them with your eyes open, and even if things don't go the way that you want, it's always a learning lesson. There's always a lesson to be learned, but nothing new is going to happen if we all just close ourselves from that and just just keep re-solidifying our stake and our power, in what we want and in our stance. And I'm not budging on this. I'm just, this is the way that it is, and I'm not willing to see anything else, willing to even entertain any other perspectives. I see that a lot in the world, today, where we just right away jump down some other person's throat, and they say anything that is one of the catchphrases that you don't speak about in this way, then we cancel them, or we insult them and just try to crush them, basically, um, rather than listening, asking questions. I think one of the things, and you do this a lot, is asking questions is probably like the remedy for egoism and sort of false pride, because you're you're saying that I'm I don't know everything, and I'm willing to learn and to listen and to take on your perspective and to consider it, and I think that is also part of holding space for another person. Is you're saying, okay, well, I don't know, I've sometimes it's hard to do that. Like just recently, I was talking with someone, and like we got into some political stuff, and I just had I had a hard time just saying, well, just with the idea of, well, maybe they have a point, you know, like, and I could tell that I was just feeling afraid. I didn't want them to, I don't know. I didn't want to show any, I thought I was going to lose something, you know.
And I think that comes down to, so like we explained before, a lot of times we're influenced by our upbringing and what we saw.
Yeah.
So there's a teacher named Neely Fuller who I got the word from. I'm still learning.
Mm.
So he's become an example, and his thing was, was always, he said, stay in the question lane
Yeah.
because you find stuff out. So I had an example of a man who was acting in this way.
Mm.
So then any precepts that I couldn't do the same were gone because I had someone I admired who was acting in this way. So that then makes it easier for me to be the same way. And his thing was always learning, always finding out. And so he wasn't motivated by, I've got to defend this image. I've got to
Yeah.
defend this idea. His thing was, I don't know. So let me find out. And you know what? Sometimes as well, what happens, I worked in a school and you ask a question. Do you know there are a lot of people who don't put their hand up? Not because they don't know, because they're afraid of being wrong.
Yeah.
So what we decided to do, we decided to change that rather than say, you know what, he's got the answer, and you'll see me.
Yeah.
Okay, what about this person or that person? And also, when the answer maybe wasn't correct,
Yeah.
there's a way of saying it where, because we know, what happens, so there's a way of approaching it. Because sometimes not having the correct answer is an admission that you've learned another thing that doesn't work.
Mm.
So we're always learning things. So I think sometimes not wanting to save face,
Yeah.
it limits in regards to then what we learn, because then we're not open to new information. It limits our behavior because we don't want to. How many people do you think out there are they, men, boys, who would love to be dancers, whatever, singer, but I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to play the piano, but I'm not doing that. But they would like to. They have an interest in it. But what will my mates think, or what will Johnny down the road say, or they've got to fit in, or you got 10 guys going out to a bar. One guy doesn't want to go, but I'll go along just to fit in.
Yeah.
And we see that in schools with children. They do it to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
We do it to be one of the group.
Mm.
We do it to look cool.
Yeah.
I think that's why I called it toxic immaturity
Mm.
rather than toxic masculinity. Because the same behaviors that we see growing up, just as adults, we can now justify them better.
Yeah.
We've learned how to say the correct things. Oh yes, so that's fine. Yes, but I think if we're gonna make do things different, we really got to look at this. And all our systems are, they're just they're just smothered in it. Almost
Mm.
every single system that we have, political systems, ideological systems, ways of being, are smothered in this toxicity.
Yeah.
And now's the time to look at something else. And it starts with, like you said, here, holding space, seeing what comes up.
Yeah. And it's only through starting with that where we can hold space for another person. If I'm not able to do it for myself, when, and I've noticed this in relationships, when my, partner would be upset, just show some emotion, then it's like, it's an immediate defense comes up. Or the strategy is, oh, this is what you can do to feel better, So try to, how can we fix it? How can we fix things so that you feel better, so that I feel safe? That's basically it. Or in my mind, not saying it to the person, why are you doing this to me? Everything is fine. Why are you causing trouble? Like, why are you shaking? What is the reason to shake the shake things up, keep everything everything is fine? And that's what they call in the Indian culture, Kali is the I think it's Kali is the destroyer. I think it is. Is it Kali the destroyer? I might be getting it incorrect, but I or is it Vishnu? Might be Vishnu. But I think it's Kali. Kali's the one that's holding the severed head.
I
Um,
think Kali's got the, is it the black tongue and the eight? Is it eight? No, the seven heads, yeah, isn't it?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
so, yes.
But one of them is the one that shakes things up, you know, and um, and so in a way, like when the shaking things up is is part of life. I think it's more in alignment with the reality of life. You know, I may want things to stay a certain way, but my physical body is moving, there's the heart is beating, everything is in constant movement, emotions are coming, the body gets old, this thing that we call a death of the body will come at a certain point. And so like at a certain point things are going to shake up. And so to be able to be with someone who is um, invading invading my space with their stuff, their emotions, their upset, their anger, their sadness, and then it's like, okay, like, and you talked about it that given room to that, it's not just about me, it's not just about me. And in a way, this is the great I, the me. And so it is an opportunity to expand this sense of self by opening and letting someone else's world, opening up to someone else's world, to their emotions, and to being there for them, being compassionate, um, affectionate, whatever it is that is needed, at that moment. But yeah, it does start with being able to do it to yourself. And to be able to do it with yourself is not something that I think most of us men learn growing up. So that's part of the problem. And I see it also with my son, how I sometimes will, like for Valentine's Day, I gave my younger and eldest daughter a rose, and my mom came to visit us recently, and she noticed that I did, and then she said, "What about your son?" And I was like, he's fine. Like, and and I thought, yeah, I recognized, like, yeah, why didn't I, like, what am I like teaching him really, that no, you just give it to. So yeah, I mean, she was right about that, which got me a little bit irritated. Like, my thing was like, get mind your business. Why are you bringing that up? Telling me how to be a parent.
You as well. You remember in those movies, yes, and the guy has been shot in his stomach or something, and he goes, "Here, yeah." He goes, "No, I'm cool, I'm fine." And he walks another. He's got a wound the size of his hand coming off, and he's fine. Yeah, yeah. But do you know what? The simple thing is, though, we learnt all of these things.
Yeah.
We were trained a lot of times to be this way from the beginning, from our parents and friends. It's training. So much of it is training,
Mm.
and just to see it for what it is. And no, and it doesn't mean before. I think maybe something we have to address. It doesn't mean that you just a walkover, that
Yeah.
people can do anything you want to, and you got to run off or whatever. No, there'll be, but you're not led by this old sense of me. I've got a safe face.
Yeah.
You're not led by that anymore. So you can sit back, and there will be times when wisdom will say walk away,
Yeah.
and there'll be a time where wisdom may say the next few moments are going to be very tricky.
Mm.
But you're not led by this, this holding on to this idea of who I am.
Mm.
I think from that comes a greater capacity.
Yeah.
For all of us. We stop and look. And it's in so much of our behavior, so much of what we do, in its how much of the way we see the world, even in regards to what we think is a men's colour and a women's colour. Maybe there may be some gender, I don't know, yes, but a lot of these things that are trained into us, and I read this article a while ago, and I don't know where and from what, but it was, I think that pink was originally a colour that men wore.
Mm.
It wasn't always a colour that we attributed to women.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things we've learned, and there's another way of looking at things and doing things, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I've, the color thing is one thing. I mean, I had a pink shirt. I don't think I wore it once. Even like I started doing got back into mixed martial arts, and since starting I have a wrist injury, two shoulder injuries, a calf injury, and a lower back injury.
But you're
Because I
fine, yeah.
yeah. Because I just I push through. So I feel it. My body says, "Ow," and I'm like, "Come on, let's go, let's go." And I'm hitting the mitts with my trainer and using the right hand, and I'm like, and there's this part of me that's like hiding it. Like, finally, it hurts so much. I went like this, and my trainer said, lay off on hitting it. But yeah, there's this thing that I can't. Oh my gosh, I can't show that there's an injury, and I feel pain,
Mm,
because to show I feel pain is to be vulnerable,
mm.
and maybe there's a part that's like, um, I don't know if it's like a primitive part, like if you're an animal out there, you don't the predator will go after the weak one.
Mm.
So if they see any weakness, they'll, like, if they're going after a herd of elk, they'll see the one that's a little weakened, and they'll go after that one. They notice. They're very perceptive in that way. And that's how I grew up. Growing up, there was that in my neighborhood. The predator would go after the one that seemed weak. The one that seemed a little vulnerable, and then they'll kind of pick after that one. Or, like, if you go into prison, they'll always tell you, anyone like messes with you at all, like the first person, you got to fight them right away. You don't back down. The first person, and then that shows other people. And certain areas, maybe that's justifiable, but now taking that into relationships when you're at home, or being that way with your kids, or just whatever in just your everyday life in the supermarket, just I don't want to I don't know, I don't want to ask the worker where this vegetable is, or whatever it is, or I don't want to tell my doctor that I'm having some male problems, or to check certain areas. Like, I mean, men really have, like, get into serious trouble, like they don't get like certain checkups because, oh no, that's scared, and that's not manly, and all this sort of stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, when you're in certain situations, of course, you go into, you're in a prison, but like you said, to take these behaviors out into everyday world, I mean, that's I guess where the problem is, really. And so I guess it's to kind of look at it. I remember being in school, and at sometimes it did feel like going to war,
mm,
uh, going to school, and it wasn't the greatest time of life. I can admit to you, having to constantly prove. Fortunately, I was quite good at sports, so I had that. But in other ways, constantly trying to prove, and it does sometimes, it can make your school time a real nightmare because you're not being who you are. A lot of time, you're not doing the things that you want to do.
mm.
Having to save face. What's that? I think, you know what? It's oh, do you remember in the movie Malcolm X, when that guy says to Malcolm X, I had to do it to keep my rep.
Mm.
And he had to do something. I can't remember what it was, to keep your reputation, to keep this, to keep these things and ideas.
Yeah.
What we do and what we sacrifice. And I think a lot of us do these at even low levels to keep our reps.
Mm.
And it may be just little things in a little, in a one-to-one relationship.
Yeah.
It could be, like you said, looking for the beans in the supermarket. It could be just be anything, not wanting to look stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been there growing up a lot. So, yeah, we do these things, and it's really it destroys us, I think.
Yeah. One of the greatest words that growing up that a lot of guys use is "I know," before the words even come out. Oh yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Or I'm fine. Yeah, yeah, it's good. Everything's good.
That's cool, man. Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm okay. That's no problem. Yeah, that's wicked.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we love a lot of guys love when, and it gives us a little bit of a relief when they love when the sports person gets emotional or the politician cries. Then it's like, okay, it's safe. When the football player has a moment of vulnerability. So we want that stuff, so when the football player gets emotional, starts crying and like, yeah, this one was for my mother, this one was for this person, and then it's like, I can let go of some of that. It's okay. I can. It's okay. It's okay to feel the emotion. Yeah, and I think it also. I mean, for me, it influences how I relate to other males as well, because there's this feeling of I'll you know I'll be this I'll be this masculine sort of like person, like I won't, in my own way, I won't show any sadness or vulnerability or things like that, and it's like a surface level sort of relationship.
And it's interesting as well that so many of the sports we play are so violent.
Yeah.
So many of the films we watch are so violent. So many of the games that we play are lots. What's that? Is that film game they play? Is it Tour of Duty? That computer game or whatever game it's called? Yeah.
Oh, Call of Duty.
Yeah. Somebody's so violent.
Yeah.
And Gandhi said, I think it was Gandhi. Please let me know if I got the quote correct. He said, I'm not going to let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet.
Mm.
I think when we allow all these things into our heads, into what we're watching and reading and taking in, we're allowing others to walk through our minds with their dirty feet. And with a false concept of reality.
Mm.
So what about if we look at the definitions and say they do not serve us anymore?
Yeah.
And redefine them. And then we can forge a new way, not limited by what we saw in the past. So we're not going to pick people for leadership positions on their war record. We might pick them on their compassion, on their humanity, and their empathy, and a character trait which serves what we would like to see happen.
Yeah.
Let's redefine all these words. Softness does not mean weak. Was it a bamboo bends over in the wind, but a bamboo is not weak, is it? It bends with the flow.
Yeah. Yeah, which like reminds me of and talking about the violent sports and the bamboo. One of my favorite boxers is Floyd Mayweather, which I don't know if you know him, but his personality, people can call him arrogant and all other things because he's very boisterous, and he's always talking about, he says, I'm the greatest in the world. He's always saying he's the best. And but when you look at how he is in the ring, for him, other boxers will just go, they will brawl, they get punched a lot and they just go in there and fight. Floyd Floyd Mayweather, a lot of people don't like him because he has such great intelligence as a boxer and defense. So he is playing very strategically. And I just watched a fight with him, old fight with him recently. And there is a certain humility that he has, that even when the crowd is chanting because, wanting them to go after each other and the other guy is just swinging and swinging, Floyd is just not listening. He's in his own game plan and being strategic. And, what he had said is his message that he's trying to pass down to other boxers coming up is you don't have to do this sport and leave the sport with brain damage. Because, Muhammad Ali was great. And before he had Parkinson's and before he got sick, a lot of people didn't like him, and they would say a lot of people were against him because he was outspoken. But he said, but then everyone loved him when he was in a wheelchair and couldn't speak much. And so his message was, don't give in to like these ideas of what it is to be a good boxer. You can do this sport and do it well. Floyd Mayweather just retired and 0 defeats, won every single match, still is intact, only got hit a few times, a few times that really shook him, but he has his health. And so that's one of the message he's trying to teach. So even though on the surface he seems like this boisterous person, this big ego and everything, but the way that he did the sport of boxing was in his own way and really showed a lot of humility, patience, tolerance, and not willing to give in to this sort of idea of what a man is. And you can see what being masculine is, and you can see the artistry in how he boxes. It's just great to watch him as an artist when he's in the ring.
I guess on that subject as well, he learned what serves and what doesn't serve. His uncle and his father were boxers as well.
Exactly, yeah.
He saw people who fought for years end up with nothing.
Yeah.
He saw for people who fought for years end up badly injured.
Yeah.
He saw people that had been bullied into contracts to do fights they didn't want to do and got damaged.
Yeah.
So he goes, well, I can't speak for Floyd Mayweather, but he saw what didn't work. What will work? Firstly, I'm in this sport, but the aim is not to get hit.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter how rich you are, if you're not well, it doesn't really count for much. I saw people getting ripped off So let me
Yeah.
promote myself.
Yeah.
I saw people go into battles because they heard the crowd baying, "Go and get him, go and get him."
Yeah.
No, I've seen people do that, and I've seen what happened to them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to please you, because when I'm at home at night in agony and pain, you who was baying for blood will not be coming to my house to help me, to feed me, to look after me, to comfort me when I'm ill.
Yeah.
So I think that takes a great strength in knowing who you are.
Hmm.
I'm not going to get pressurized by others to do something I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And that takes great strength, confidence, I guess, in who you are. And you can be a boxer, a chef, a whatever it is. I've found a way to do this thing. I enjoy this way, and I'm going to go this way. A lot of people may not say, and I'm not even going to get into any arguments with them. I don't need to get defensive either, do I?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm this, I'm that. I don't need to. This is my expression. Wherever your field is, I'm going to go this way.
Mm.
At least then at the end, you can say, I did it my way.
Yeah.
I tried, because I don't know. I've not lived to 150, but I was thinking that, one of the things that may be could be a regret, could be I didn't try this thing that I wanted to do
Mm.
because of self-doubt or other people's feelings. I didn't do this project because I really wanted to,
Yeah.
but I didn't do it. It's interesting as well that, remember, we talked about this last week in the filmmaking. Can we make films a different way? And SBO talked about making films that had fun in it. And we talked about, your project as well. So from making new films to singing different songs to creating new ventures to our leaders having different qualities that we will define masculinity as, will transform everything in our behaviors. And someone saying, I don't like you, before we get defensive, I've got to protect my identity, we might go, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Because it probably is fine. There are probably times where you don't even like yourself. So you could probably say, okay, you know what? I actually agree with you. There are times I don't even actually like myself. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah. So toxic immaturity. So we just talked about Floyd Mayweather, and there is a maturity that's there, in how he represents himself, how he carries himself in the ring, and some of the decisions that he seems to make in his life. Yeah. So what is immature is not bending with the wind. So like that bamboo is mature. What is immature is to just stay there and just you just break off, because something's always there's always going to be someone that hits harder, that is stronger. There's always going to be something that is stronger, faster, more intelligent, all these different things. And so learning that that's not a measure of my value, and is important to recognize that. So, and part of it is for me is what is connected to my self-worth. What is it, what does it mean to be of value, to be worthy? Um, what are the qualities that represent worthiness? And if we've learned that these qualities are just being stoic and strong and rigid and appearing a certain way, or always being right, or always winning, being the strongest, being the most powerful, then we're always going to be in a constant struggle, because there's always going to be something or someone that's going to be more powerful in those specific ways. There's always going to be someone that knows something that I don't know. And so what about if the value is, if we just solve the problem with that by recognizing that our value is inherent in the fact that we are, in the fact that we exist, just like any other part of nature. So we don't have to get to any place or prove anything. So the value is already there. And then one can perhaps be free to express authentically in whatever ways that one wants to express, whatever is coming up in the moment.
I think you said it there. If the value is already here and there's no requirement for anything outside, all that stuff having to prove points or be this and that falls away.
Yeah.
Immediately. See, I can't be enhanced because I have a Ferrari.
Yeah.
I can't be enhanced by the labels of certain clothes on my back. I can't be enhanced by jewelry around my neck.
Yeah.
It's very interesting that sometimes you find the poorest people have some of the most expensive items of clothes on.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because they feel there's something to prove.
Yeah.
But if we know the value is in us and nothing can add to that anyway, learning and making mistakes are growth. In fact, let's look for the mistakes because that's where I'm going to grow. Constructive criticism is valuable. Saying there's a book, I don't know much about it, but I heard it from Dr. Carr, and it was from Jesse Owens. I think it's his last book. And I think Jesse Owens in the 60s was against the Black Power movement. And I think his last book was I Have Changed. I think it was called I Have Changed. And that as well is a growing, I understand that my point where I was, but I have changed.
Yeah.
I'm not rigidly keeping to this way of being. It doesn't serve anymore.
Mm.
And for knowing it's all within, and not in a a concept. Oh, it's all within. No, it actually is what we require. Then names, places, concepts, thoughts, ideas, they can't add to us and they can't take anything away from us.
Yeah.
Being called a sissy, that's an S, an I, an S, an S. You put it together, that's a word. What does that mean to me? Absolutely nothing. It can't take away from anything that I have.
Mm.
I'm sure it's the same with you. How many times did you see fighting break out between guys over a word?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Over a football team they support or a basketball team they support.
Mm.
A political party they support.
Yeah.
A nation they support.
It could be over anything. And yeah, it is this, the toxic immaturity. I used to get into fights all the time. And growing up, I used to like fighting. But there was one time where, I was drinking and there was some other guy there, and I got into some stupid argument. And right away, I escalated it to, let's go outside and fight. I was very drunk, and it would be an understatement to say things didn't go my way. So yeah, so this guy, he basically had his way with me, and uh, you know, uh, so after, like, my cousin was there with me, after my cousin picked me up from the ground, and I was like a little dizzy and like my face sort of deformed, and and the guy's like putting on his jacket. What I say to him is, "Come on, let's still go. Let's, I'm not done." Rather than going home and taking care of.
You had to say something, yes?
Yeah, exactly. I like to show him that I'm still, ready. I'm not giving up. And yeah, if like, luckily he was just like,
We hear this sometimes, don't we? In martial arts, that the fighter wants to go out on their shield. You know what I mean? Like, you'd rather be carried out
yeah,
unconscious, just like that. Rather than, and yeah, and that's kind of glorified. And I think we've seen that in our movies, with at the end the gladiator is just dead, but he gave his all to the last, and they picked him up and it carried him off on the shield, and that was became the warrior. But this notion of warrior, and you said it before, in the First Nation communities around the world, had very different meanings depending on where you were.
yeah,
There are many different types of warriors. So this old way, which is, I think, one way which we have learned in this society we've grown up with, yes, but there are 15 to 20 others maybe of being a warrior.
yeah.
And that warrior was not defined by sex, by gender. So if we redefine what it is, or even broaden it to what it is, because it may be today a warrior may be Live to fight another day. Bob Marley.
Yeah.
Oh, what's the track called? I can't remember what the song is called.
I remember the line.
Yeah, yeah. It may be on this particular day, it's not your day, in whatever it is.
Yeah.
We're using it as smarts, our wisdom.
Yeah.
Yes. So how do we, so what ways is there, Addy, that we go forward with this? We've spoken about building community. We've talked about connection with other people, holding space.
Hmm.
And so what ways do we go forward? We spoke of, not taking on board what these old definitions mean.
Yeah. I think one of the ways is to understand, as you always say, that we're still learning. It's very important to recognize where we recognize our mistakes, our missteps, and to recognize it first without condemnation, and not in a pejorative way that this means that I am bad or anything like that, but more in sort of a logical way. Like if you're a child and you're learning how to walk, you're going to make mistakes, and you correct them, and you try to you do it over, and in martial arts, my trainers always commented on certain mistakes, and so it's not enough to me to recognize it, say, oh yeah, I see that mistake, and then just continue to do it. So there's a part of me that's like, no, I just want to do it my way. I don't want to recognize. I just want to be like, we could also misuse this sort of the word authenticity as kind of, this is just who I am. you know, we could say, I'm just being my authentic self. I've accepted who I am, and you may, and that's fine, as long as you're not hurting someone. But it can keep you into a place of just your world being very small, So, and I've gone through that as well. Like, you can get into the phase of self-acceptance, of being who you are, but taking that to an extreme, and you can bypass. Spiritual language gives you so many different tools to bypass everything. You can say, well, it's just a concept, everything's just a concept, and which on some level is true, but as you had mentioned to me at one point, is it true experientially? Have you experienced that, or is this just a concept? The concept, everything's a concept, is just a concept. That's just another concept as well. So those are just words as well. So experiencing, I think, when you feel something is a misstep, that you've made you can feel it. And that's also part of that immaturity. If you can feel it, but you're just ignoring it and bypassing. But I can feel when something doesn't sit right, like, it really takes a power of discernment. It's really a dance. It's really, and maybe it is both of those energies, the feminine and masculine, and being able to see the relationship between the two, and the movement and everything. Because I think one has to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to be my authentic self, and expressed. But if in that expression something comes up where there's a mistake and I can feel it, then there does, hopefully there's room for making a course correction. It's okay, I could feel that didn't feel right, so I'm gonna correct it, whatever it is, or else I'm just like there's this experiment that scientists made where they started giving, I think it was like rats, cocaine. It was some it was some drug. They were like torturing these rats and for this experiment. So when the rats would push this button, they get this hit of this drug, and we can do that and just keep pressing the button, but say, I'm just wanting to be here in this authentic. I'm just, I'm just being authentically me and not judging and not. So there's something, I think, um, where we don't want to be an idiot as well. We don't want to be, we don't want to make stupid choices, and it's important to correct mistakes and to experience, to be able to experience and to say, yeah, maybe I should take an action doing something differently, and that might mean stepping into that place of the unknown, and that might mean being vulnerable and saying, I don't know.
Yeah, I think this toxicity of immaturity pervades all parts of society. So, like you said, even in spirituality, I think spirituality is the greatest hiding place of the ego.
Yeah.
Wonderful, because you can say and do justify anything.
Yeah.
There is no self. Whatever it is,
Yeah.
it can be used, and we've seen harmful behavior because of it. And I've seen a few discourses in discussion groups, and you think, really, is this going on here in this place? Yeah, so I think we've got to look at that, and it's honesty, isn't it? Really, with your really being honesty and knowing when this confliction comes up, and you're able to just see it, being honest with yourself. Maybe something comes on up that you can't accept, and say, you know what? Be honest. Say, I can't accept this at the moment, or what? Be honest with what's coming up.
Yeah.
Be honest. Yes, we are driven by maybe primal or genetic drives. That if we're looking to be universal beings, what it didn't even serve before, but what happened before does definitely not serve now. Whether it be environmental or spiritual or just ways of living.
Yeah.
It's not a kind of trick question we can see in our treatment of the oceans, of people, of wherever you came from. In fact, we're still talking about issues, and when you think it's actually 2022, these same discussions have been going on for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Racism. Are you really not liking me because of my skin is this color? In 2022. Which I think is premised on the fear of me and what I will lose. We did the same things in regards to 2022. What a travesty if we're having this discussion in 2082.
Yeah.
Or what about if we came back a day in 2430 and we saw two guys here? Oh, it's still racism. It's still these things going on. We'll say, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
We were talking about this 400 years ago on the Coffee Diaries podcast, and it was going on for hundreds of years before that. This is still being, this sense of me, is it still going? This separation that we've created, is that really going on in 2430? I hope not. I think it's down to each particular mind body. I think it starts with yourself. And if we start with ourselves, then I think it exudes out into every kind of, in all of our relationships. And then stop and think, does this really, have I been trained to think this way? Or is there another way of seeing it?
Yeah.
Have I been trained to like this violence? Or is there another way of doing it? Have I been trained to treat this person this way? Act in this way? Aggressive in this way? Because like when you said in regards to making mistakes, being afraid to make a mistake, we've learned that because, as you know, when you got children, we don't see children fall 6-month-old falling over and going, "Oh God, I made a mistake. It's terrible. Oh God, no, I'm not going to try and walk anymore. I forget it. Get me a chair. I don't want to walk anymore, please." And we don't see two branches, and one branch says, "Oh, I'm better than you. I'm higher up on the tree than you."
Yeah.
We don't see that. Or imagine we saw two raindrops falling down, and on the way down, they were arguing about who was going to hit the floor first. We will stand there in utter amazement.
Yeah.
But I think we do that a lot. And if we see it makes no sense, then, and we really see it, how do we continue on with this way if we see it doesn't serve the kind of world that we say we are trying to create?
Yeah.
If we genuinely mean we are trying to create a new world, then many of the thoughts, ideas, systems, ways of being, this sense of me, this immaturity of wanting to be led, someone else to tell me who I am, does not serve the new way. And it hasn't served for a long time, and I would say probably it never served except for a tiny maybe clique who would like control. It's never actually served. So if it never actually served, then what does little 4-year-old Johnny say? Johnny, if it doesn't serve you, where do we go? Johnny might say, let's try a new way. And it starts here and now. And there'll be challenges, of course, because I like what Rupert says, even when you pull out the plug, the fan will keep going for a while.
Yeah.
So not to be too hard on yourself when the old mechanisms come up and beat yourself up about it. Because that's, okay, the fan's still running for a bit, then let's see it. And slowly.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things is we don't, just to be mindful of when the judgments come. Um, we can allow ourselves to experience life and to be here with what is without putting all these judgments onto it, good or bad or right or wrong.
Did you get us your son a flower, Ade?
Yeah, it's it's funny. I noticed that when I was going to go buy the flowers, I did notice, like, should I? No, he doesn't need one. And yeah, it's made me mindful of being able to be there for him in more of a affectionate way, and more of a way that is not so, you need to be like a sort of unfeeling man, sort of thing. You got to be strong, you got to be tough, you got to be all of these things,
Because it's interesting, isn't it? Because you like nature, so in regards to when we look at the say ikebana, the Japanese art of flower arranging,
Mhm.
would we term that masculine or feminine? We'll just look at it for what it is. So
Yeah.
maybe it's just if you had arranged it in a different way and use it and put a Zen koan at the bottom and given it to your son.
Yeah. So yeah, this one of the things that this, I think, conversation um, brought up is the word opportunity. It's when I'm thinking of mistakes, and when I'm thinking of how sometimes we've been kind of programmed to think of masculinity in a certain way. This conversation brought up the word opportunity. So there's opportunity in our mistakes to learn, to expand, to experience something new. In allowing myself to be vulnerable, there's opportunity to become acquainted with more of me, and therefore with more of others who because now I don't have to I'm not so terrified of emotions. So there's so much opportunity to be had when taking that sort of step into that uncertainty, stepping outside of everything I think I know, or stepping outside of that sort of comfort zone.
And also, incarnating these bodies, there is this enormous opportunity and potential to feel, to be human, to be a being. But
Yeah.
if we suppress it all, we don't get the full magnitude of life, do we? So we don't feel the things that comes up and not be attached to them, but actually let them come and let them go through, and then they go off into the sunset. But we can actually feel it.
Yeah.
If we spend so long suppressing it down there, it causes so many issues in the body. So is that then really, if we become feeling, if we're not, are we fully human then if we suppress all of these things within us? Or even are we fully, and then on the other end, are we human if we are just led robotically by our conditioning? So either way, is that being fully human? Is
Mm.
fully human to feel it all, but not being led robotically by our training what we think, but to allow it to still feel it all,
Yeah.
to be a full being,
Mm.
and a universal being. And I say universal because that's the quote that Neely Fuller says, to go beyond what we have been to become the universal beings that is a possibility.
Mm.
And we finish with the word, like you said, the possibility, which is an open word, isn't it? And the possibility is that, it's, and also allows us to look at, yes, there will be in that possibility, because we don't know, there is vulnerability.
Yeah.
And mistakes are not what we thought they were if we learn from them. If we keep falling into the same ditch 100 times over, then we're not learning and growing. If we fall into it once and get out and say, you know what, next day we're going to walk around it, then that first day may not have been a mistake. That first day changes into, I went to school that day, or I had
Yeah.
learning that day.
Yeah.
That redefines what we think of that word. But to do that, we have to look at what we've done. It seems to be when you look at what we've done, what's happened, really see it, sit with it, and then learn from it and go a different way, rather than being led constantly like what's that, around the, like those rats around the kind of a course,
Yeah.
or horse races around a course, being led around constantly. And sometimes we're led in these by our fears,
Mm.
not our joys.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. What's leading us? The fear, recognizing the fear, or recognizing the joy, what feels good, what feels good to the body, you know, rather than this movement to get away from the boogeyman, get away from the monster in the closet.
Hmm. Do you remember in that movie when the monsters were in the closet, and finally, I think they work out that if they allow the monster in and they share time with them, he's not really a monster.
Mm.
And even, yeah, so the name monster creates an idea of this big thing with fangs and hair coming out and all kind of things. What have we named this thing? A Mr. Moogly Woogly, who's in the he's
Yeah.
in the cupboard. Yeah, then just take away all of these ideas.
Yeah.
And like, it seems to always come back to how we define these things. It seems to
Mm.
always come back to our picture that we create of these things.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The picture of what we have created, which seems to serve some purpose. Not that we have put the purpose there, but it seems like these things were put into place for a reason, maybe to control, maybe to, I mean, we started teaching kids about monsters and scary things and putting it on TV and, putting it out there, don't open the closet and, pretty much just teaching fear.
Mm.
I don't know if it's intentionally or not, whether it's intentionally or not. I don't think, I don't know if it's as important, but there does seem to be a pattern here to maintain some sort of um, control.
Yeah, but if we don't know who set these parameters. We don't
Mm,
know. We can guess why they set these parameters, and we don't even know when these parameters were set.
yeah,
So if we look at it, I'm being led by I don't know who, and I don't know what, and I don't know why.
yeah,
And then a lot of the things that it seems that become culture have sets of behaviors that have been programmed and come into over a long time. But are they necessarily, where did they come and they start from? Is my way of thinking this, is it because I've been trained to do this, or is it because really what I actually think? Is me what I call losing this race, is it a bad thing, or is it just that I've been trained that you have to win the gold medal to have any kind of credibility, or is that just what I've been taught or trained?
mm,
We were playing chess. If you play chess a day 100 times against 100 first time players and you win 100 times, yes?
hmm
You won every game, yes? What about if I play 100 times against 100 grandmasters and I lose 100 times? Out of us, who has won?
mm. I would say you, because you've learned a lot in those 100 games.
So that means to say that what we call winning or losing may not have actually always have to do with winning or success or failure or whatever it is. Because yes, I would say that being 100 grandmasters and playing them, I mean, beating 100 times is extraordinary. The fact that I even got to play 100 grandmasters
Yeah,
is that's extraordinary.
yeah,
Every game I learned something against the best in the world, but I may have lost, but I won.
yeah, yeah. Perception is powerful, and our ability to reframe things and to ask the question why, to question our biases and our sort of our programming. So when we become aware of it and we can ask the question why, we don't even have to go into it to, it could be never ending, finding the source, as we talked about, who started it all. You could say Christopher Columbus, you could go back to the Big Bang, um, but just recognizing that, what, and questioning, why would this be more true than something else? I can create something else, so I can approach this in a different way that's new and fresh, and you know just as valid,
Mm.
with leaving room that is, it is an experiment. It could be a mistake,
Mm.
but at least, I find when I've done that and question it and try things in a in a different way, and maybe just looking at things in a different way. It is, I feel, more alive. It opens up something, whether there's mistakes or not. It does kind of get you out of this track, this one-way track.
And I think Jimi Hendrix put it really well when all these ideas and concepts about me and the toxic masculinity or toxic immaturity, and Jimi Hendrix said, all these things are like castles made of sand which fall into the sea.
Yeah.
Eventually